Angela. Okay, it's Jim again. Taking a break from the living hell that is my accounting. But anyway, I've told you about that. So let's see, a couple of things that you asked about and a couple of things that I thought about. Before I forget, choking a cymbal. It's a pretty cool thing. Usually, when people talk about choking the cymbal, they often talk about a splash cymbal, which this little one is over here. I don't know if you can see it. It's a Peisty 10-inch splash. That's literally what's called a splash, instead of, of course, this being a crash, this being a ride cymbal. These little ones are called splashes. They actually say splash on it. Same kind Phil uses. He doesn't use splashes, but anyway, 2002 Peisty. This one is 10-inch. And what people normally do, I only have this one here because I don't have, or most of my cymbals are over with my other kit. I just have a few cymbals here just to, do the basic practicing I do. But anyway, this one, what people normally do is, choking a cymbal is basically this. Hold on, I gotta move around here to do it. It's this. And of course you hit the bass drum at the same time, like you do with any cymbal strike for the effect. But it's just doing that. And of course I'm using my left foot, but you would normally be sitting as I was a minute ago. I just can't reach it from that distance, and I just use it as a crash cymbal, as when you've seen me playing. Normally it would be like sitting down low or something so you could reach it. But anyway, crash wise, this is what it sounds like if I don't choke it. Not too great, that's why people don't use it as a crash cymbal. But anyway, choking is just that, stopping the sound, literally with your hand. But you don't have to do that on just a little splash cymbal. That's what people normally associate with choking a cymbal, but you can do it with any cymbal. For instance, if you did it at the end of a roll, which is kind of common, people will go like this. And normally they'll do that like at the end of a song, where you don't want the cymbals to just ring. Some songs you want them to ring, other songs you want them to stop. For effect, if the whole band stops, you don't want your cymbals ringing, so you would do just a roll. Sometimes people will grab them with the same hand. It doesn't matter which hand you grab them with, quite frankly. If your other hand is doing something, then you can go. You can do two strikes with the bass drum. Video-wise on YouTube, Carmine Apiece does a lot of that choking. He's got a really interesting technique where he doesn't hit the bass drum first, and he'll do a couple of fills, and then he'll go like that. He does it much better than me. But if you go to really any Carmine Apiece tutorial, and he has lots of them, and they're really good. Carmine, of course, is a really good drummer. You'll see him doing that a lot. Again, he does it much better than I do, because I don't do a lot of that. You can also, what you're basically doing by choking the cymbal is the same thing you do with a hi-hat, but of course the hi-hat chokes itself because it's two cymbals, which I'll show you in a second. You also asked about a flam, so before I forget about the flam, let me see if I can explain that a little bit better. We already talked about, and you already know, it's hitting the snare slightly one stick right after the other. So of course this is not a flam. That's more, the beginnings of a rudiment, a regular, left, right, those kind of rudiment things. A flam is a rudiment too, as you know, but it's literally just hitting one stick right before the other. So to practice a flam, all I would do is just keep hitting the snare drum again and again and again. Or you could do it with your left first. I usually do it with my right because I'm right-handed. You can do it with your left first, but if you're right-handed, usually you hit it with your right first. But you can do it left first. Kind of feels a little unnatural to me since I'm right-handed. But either way, and again, like I showed you last time, people normally use that, well, lots of different ways, but I showed you, I think, this. It's good for that, but you can do a flam with anything. It's just really cool sounding. You can do it off the hi-hat. That I showed you last time. That's the beginning. The first strikes are really kind of a flam. Anything where the sticks hit right after one another is a flam. And it just drags out the note a little bit more. You're not going off of the note, but it just gives a more fat, full sound instead of just, that's fine, that's a note. Flam is a note too, it's just what you're doing is making an extended note. People often do that instead of going, they will do it fast and go like that. It's just a matter of building up speed and coordination. It does take a while because I know the natural inclination is either to do one strike or to do two strikes spaced out into two notes. This is just taking two notes and jamming them into one. That's really all a flam is. So, I don't know if that answers that. I hope it does. It's really just kind of a matter of practice. There's no other really tricks to it. So, having said that, choking a cymbal like on the hi-hat, using the hi-hat. As I told you last time, I don't use a hi-hat much to keep time, but I do use it for effects. Phil does a lot of this. Lots of heavy metal, hard rock drummers do this, what I'm going to show you. And it's just a matter of, well, I call it a matter of filling space. It's kind of a transition choke on the hi-hat, if you want to think of it that way. So, for instance, a lot of heavy metal, when doing a normal timekeeping into a cymbal crash, will do this. Now, that's pretty straightforward, that's fine. But if you want to fill that gap in between the note you hit on the snare drum and the crash cymbal, then what people will do is they'll use the hi-hat to fill it like this. So you will lift your hi-hat up right before you hit the crash. I do that a lot. It's kind of like one of the cymbal signature things that I do. I like doing it. It's smooth. It's a nice transition. It fills space. And I just think it sounds cool. It feels cool to me. Of course, a lot of drumming is what feels good to you. Feels good to me. It might not feel good to you. You're just going to have to see. So anyway, different variations on that would be this. And then this. play around with your hi-hat. Anywhere that you're doing strikes with your, I assume you're right-handed, I never asked you, but I think you play right-handed. Anywhere where you do strikes with the right hand, you can open the hi-hat. And again, you're very musical. You can hear whether it kind of sounds right, fits right. But you can really do that anywhere that you're striking the hi-hat with. You can do it very simply like this. I threw it in all kinds of different places. Just open your hi-hat, experiment with it in different places, and you can judge what sounds right to your ear and what sounds and feels comfortable to you. So yeah, that's really important to get, in my opinion, to especially because I don't use the hi-hat that much. I try to use it that way. That's really kind of very jazzy type playing, but still lots of hard rock and heavy metal drummers do it, because drumming basically comes from jazz. So anyway, play around with that for a while and let me know what you think. If you want me to slow it down a little, just go back to the simple stuff that I showed you before. You've really got to use the bass drum for this though, because it doesn't sound right unless you, like a crash on just a crash cymbal, doesn't sound right unless you use the bass drum. The hi-hat doesn't sound right unless you use the bass drum. So slowed down and simplified, it's kind of like this. Fancier if that's easy to you, just throw it in lots of different places, but you're always doing the bass drum strike right when the hi-hat opens, and usually when it closes again. If you notice, that's the way I was doing it. That kind of sounds the best. It kind of emphasizes the start of that hi-hat choke and the end of it. So again, you can throw it in anywhere. You can take that simple beat that I just showed you and you can throw the hi-hat in anywhere, like this. I'm just going to change it as I go. So you can just go back and forth with it. Back in, as we know, the mid-70s, disco was really in. And if you want to listen to like the Stones, Miss You, even things like Foreigner, Feels Like the First Time, it's got that open hi-hat in it, creating that disco beat, which is just a constant opening of the hi-hat like this. That's just playing 4/4, as they call it, 4 on the floor, but it's opening the hi-hat. You get that tss, 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 that kind of disco beat. I'm not suggesting anybody play disco, of course, but it's a good practice so your foot gets used to doing it and you get that coordination between the bass, the snare, and the hi-hat. Again, I'm not into disco, as you know, but it's a cool way to practice doing that. Let's see, the other thing I was going to show you, one of the other things, is, which you may have sussed out already, I don't know, the way you hit the hi-hat. Or just the way anybody hits that, not you, but the way anybody hits the hi-hat. The way I've been doing it, just to show you in an introductory fashion, is just kind of striking it on the top, and not any special technique. I've just been doing this. with a pretty tight imprint from my foot. I'm holding the hi-hat pretty tight, closed pretty tight. Phil, for instance, usually has a pretty loose hi-hat. Most people do not hold it that tight unless they do it for effect. Off the top of my head right now, if you listen to Fleetwood Mac Dreams, Mick Fleetwood is using the exact same hi-hat cymbals I am here. They're 15-inch Paiste 2002s with the sound edge, the wavy bottom. Same as John Bonham used, but Mick Fleetwood, if you listen to that song Dreams, he's doing a very tight. He opens it once in a while, but only for effect. You know. Now that's fine. That's kind of a quiet way to play the hi-hat. As you know, I'm not very quiet when I drum. The other hi-hat techniques, and for hard rock, heavy metal, that kind of stuff, that most drummers will use is, like I said with Phil, kind of an open hi-hat, which just means you're playing very loose. And you can either adjust that up here or the way you do it with your foot. I like to adjust it up here because it's a pain in the butt remembering to keep your foot up a little bit. It irritates my foot, so I don't like that. So I will adjust it more up here. I'll bring the top cymbal up so that I basically have no stem left at all. So it's very loose. In fact, this one is not even touching. A lot of drummers do that. I would usually put it a little bit lower so that it is touching, but still very washy, so that it's just touching. So you get more of that, more of a sustained cymbal hit from the stick. Instead of, you get this. Now, I'm still just hitting it with the ball of the drumstick. What lots of hard rock and heavy metal drummers do is they won't hit the shoulder of the cymbal. And in hi-hats, you almost, I don't know anybody who hits the bell of the cymbal. But what they will do is hit the edge of the cymbal, and they will do it not with the tip of the drumstick, but with the kind of the shank of the stick, and they'll hit it sideways like this. You can do it just straight. So instead of on top, you're hitting this part of the cymbal. You're hitting both cymbals, which is why it makes a more pronounced sound. I like the sound edge hi-hats because the theory behind that is you get air comes out because it's able to, because the sound edge has that wavy bottom to it. So you get this little rush of air, this little chick they call it in cymbal terminology, the nice little chick. And of course what Phil does, which is so special, is he does both. The molar technique is one strike up and the other strike down, because he's going like this. Again, I can't do it that well with my shoulder because of arthritis, and I can't do it. It's really hard to do, which is one of the great things about Phil. But the molar technique is using both, as I said, hitting with the nub of the stick and the shank of the stick. That's what the molar is. So you get both techniques thrown in. Let me move this a little bit again. Move it down a little bit. The first person that I heard this sound of just hitting with the shank was when I was a young lad, listening to Zeppelin. The fourth album, Zeppelin's fourth album, Misty Mountain Hop, for example, Black Dog, When the Levee Breaks, and Houses of the Holy as well. John Bonham does a lot of that. He uses the edge of the cymbal pretty much through most of their songs. Again, it's a very fat, chicky sound out of the hi-hat. So instead of getting this, which is fine, again, it's preference and what fits in the song, but instead of getting that, if you play it with the shank and on the edge of the cymbal, you get this. Or if you break it down even further, you get this. So you go from, that's very tight, and you get a little bit more like washy. You go to, so what John Bonham was doing a lot was this. Or like, when the levee breaks, you know. That wouldn't sound very good if you were doing this. Obviously, sounds much different. You want that kind of washy sound. That. So practice hitting the hi-hat with like not really a tight. Not really a tight fit on it, but a little loose. Hard rock and heavy metal, again, Phil, for instance, has it very loose. That also tends to fill up a lot of space, especially, you know, AC/DC being very riff-oriented, as you know. Phil's cymbals fill a lot of space. A lot of the complaints about Chris Slade is that it doesn't sound the same, what he's doing. And it doesn't sound the same because he's not filling the space that Phil always filled. No pun intended. So play with that. I'm not really interested in this, but this is also the way people generally do, you know, the eighth notes, kind of dance type music, the you know, using both hands. Some hard rock does that, like Nazareth does it on a few songs, for instance. But it's, of course, very different than. There are times you may want to do that. Most heavy metal, though, does it with the shank. Just, again, gives you that nice chick sound. All right, another thing I thought I would show you is triplets. Easy triplets, kind of jazzy triplets, but you'll say, oh, I hear that on a lot of hard rock and heavy metal. Yes, you do. Even though it's really from jazz and jazz oriented, all drummers do this, and it sounds really cool. It's a simplified way of doing triplets. It's not that difficult. And all it is you're playing off the bass drum and the snare drum. And what I mean is this. I threw in another note, but to simplify it, it's this. And it's just going back and forth. So practice doing that. I mean, sped up, you'll hear all drummers do this. It sounds really cool. You can break it down and do it even more simpler, but it sounds really cool, and it fills space in a song, and it creates much more of a groove than just playing straight. Straight, of course, is what you're doing with throwing triplets in is you're adding a groove. You're not really changing that straight beat, except that you're going that back and forth thing through the snare and the bass drum. So I'm going to switch like in the middle to show you that it's really the same thing. You're just adding that back and forth interplay between the snare and the bass drum. It sounds easy. It's not easy to do at first, but again, practice it, and it's kind of, to me, it was a very natural thing to do, especially when played with music on. It just kind of to me at least, it felt good, it felt right. If it feels good, do it, that kind of thing. So anyway, it's like this. You can do it simpler on the bass drum if you want. I was doing 2 notes, but you can just do. Triplet you can do with anything. If you watch my videos that I have on my Facebook page, you'll see me doing a lot of this. That's really kind of the same thing. It's a triplet. You can break it up between drums. Classic John Bonham, Carmine Appice does that. Lots of drummers do that, especially near the end of a song. Cozy Powell does it a lot. He does quadruplets because he has 2 bass drums set up, which is a little different. I won't go into that right now. But anyway, I wasn't going to show you that, but that's all it is. That cymbal, that snare, bass drum thing, those are all triplets I was showing you. That's a triplet I'm throwing in, and so is this. Because all it is sped up. So, there's that you can play with. If you really want to irritate your neighbors, try those triplets. Get those triplets going. Very powerful. Sounds like a thunderstorm. Like I said, I love that sound, and it sounds great on Vista Lights. But anyway, it sounds great on any drums. Let's see. What was the other thing I was going to show you? Now it's escaping me. Let's see. One of the first drum fills I learned, I'll show you that. It's really kind of, it is Ringo Starr. I still do this to this day. If you see a video of me playing in my band, you will see me do this. And this is very, again, very Ringo. I will do, let's see, how can I break this down? I'll start with my right. I'll do it full speed first so I can think about it too. Yeah, it's you start off with your right, again if you're right-handed, and it's a matter of hitting the right harder first, left less so. It's really a rudiment. I don't know what rudiment it is, but it's really a rudiment, but you're alternating the strength with which you hit the snare drum. So if I was playing it in a song, it would sound something like this. So it's actually just, it's It's a rudiment. I don't know which one it is, but it's right, left, right, right. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. It's right, left, right, left, right, right. Yeah. That's very Ringo. Ringo's constantly doing in early Beatles. I do it to the extent that I kind of drag the left stick. It's very unpronounced. The right one is very pronounced. The left one is unpronounced. So it's something like this. Of course, I not lead off, but I kind of use the left stick to fill in because it completes the beat. You may have noticed I did that. I complete the beat and then I go into the fill. So that's why I was doing that, like this. That's something pretty much all drummers do. You can do it fast, you can do it slow. You can, and later shift it up, use your left hand to start anyway. But try that. Use one stick, whichever one it is. Again, if you're right-handed, you're right. And go back and forth. It's just right, left, and right, right. Just keep doing it. But do it with that emphasis on the right at first until you get that down. Let's see. The other thing I was going to show you, the ghost strokes. Again, this is stuff that I do. If you watch my videos, you'll see me doing lots of ghost strokes. It just came natural to me. It's like that's what drums are supposed to sound like. What I use ghost strokes for is to kind of fill right before I hit with my main snare beat, meaning this. Dragging the stick. I'm overemphasizing it, although you can do that. I mean, it's fine. People will generally do it more subtly, and of course you speed it up, slow it down, whatever the case, the tempo of the song. But it's one of those things, again, fills space, creates a groove. That's what drummers are there to do. So just try practicing that. Ghost strokes, really cool. I'll even do that. There's one song my band does, the Smithereens blues before and after. I even start into, I use the ghost stroke to like count off. So when the song starts, I will do this. I will literally drag my stick and then boom, start the song. You can do that. You can do kind of that, Las Vegas thing when somebody says a joke, that's what they're doing. They're doing a ghost stroke, a strike, and hitting a cymbal. It's very simple. And of course, when you've got that down, you can throw ghost strokes in anywhere that you're not doing your main snare beat. Like this, for example. Again, very jazzy. That's where it comes from, jazz. But everybody does it. Everybody uses it. Everybody knows what it is, drummer-wise. So that's really cool as well. Let's see. That's probably more than enough for today, I would imagine. Oh, one more thing I was going to show you. Sorry, I lied. The way you can do fills. Fills can be done fast or slow. The first person I heard doing them slow, which I thought was really cool, was Keith Moon in Who Are You? Because he does some fast and he does some slow. I like to tend to slow them down for effect. It's kind of that builds up tension and releases it. But it builds up the tension even slower when you're drumming, and then boom, releases it. I mean, that's what makes good songs, building up tension and releasing it. So what I mean is you can do a fill like this, or you can do this. In the case of Moon, you know, he's doing a lot faster. He's doing... But what he did, if you listen to Who Are You, at certain fills he slows it down. So that's kind of a normal, easy fill. Moon, and lots of other people, but Moon was the first one I noticed doing it, started doing this. So it kind of drags out that end of that fill. And you can do that, you can do it the standard way I just did it, or you can do it backwards. So, fool around with your fills, with the way you do them, the speed you do them, as long as it fits within that bar. And again, remember, I've got, you know, I have to remember this too. I've got this thing going through my head that tells me you have a certain number of notes before the end of the bar. I just have that in my head. You may have it too, I hope so. Most people who get really good at drumming do. You just develop, it's called your internal clock for drumming. I just know that I have a certain number of notes that I can fit in there, and you can play those notes slow or you can play them fast. And the way you play it gives you different effect. So a lot of drummers will do, instead of going, it's the same thing, it's just the first one I slowed down the end. So anyway, practice that. You can do that with all your fills. See how it feels, see what you think. So that is it, I promise. So I hope some of that helps. As usual, let me see how we do this. Rock on. I don't know if it's with the thumb or without the thumb, but anyway. And I'm now back to my accounting hell. So I hope things are okay with you. I hope that was helpful. Let me know. And as Ringo says, peace and love.